Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to the Katie Halper Show. So happy to be with you guys tonight. Of course, please, we encourage everyone to subscribe, and to do that, you just hit subscribe and then you hit the bell. Please like and share the stream so we can make sure that as many people come to the stream as possible. As Brad Bloom puts it, not me, us. Remember to hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Not me, us revolution. Of course, you can become Patreon supporters at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. And very exciting announcement for people who understand YouTube and technology. You can now become members of the Katie Halper Show on YouTube, and you get some kind of badges and a Bodhi emoji, which we can look into later. We'll look at that later. But enough about the show. Let's talk about the world and all the exciting things that are in it and the exciting guests that we have on tonight. As people probably know, this weekend in Chile, I sound pretentious. I feel like I sound pretentious if I say Chile, but if I say Chile, it sounds really ugly. So this weekend in Chile, Gabriel Boric, a former student organizer who apparently likes Taylor Swift, which the people are talking about, and has some tattoos, which the people are talking about, defeated Jose Antonio Kast, the son of a Nazi and a fan of Pinochet, which is nice and well-rounded, I think. We also lost someone the last week. So that was this weekend. And last week, though, we lost Lucia Iriart, who was the widow of Chilean dictator Augusto Pinochet. She died at the age of 99. He died at 91, proving that only the good die young. But instead of having a moment of silence, I thought we could have a moment of celebration. So everyone get out your pots and pans, cover your ears. Okay, so that's a celebration for the election as well as for the all too late death of Pinochet's widow. I'm sure there's no other wife of a dictator who disappeared thousands of people nicer than she was. Sure, she was a lovely woman. It couldn't have happened to a lovelier gal. But here to speak to us about the recent elections, the historical context, and what it all means are two amazing guests, Pablo Vivanco, a Toronto-based Chilean journalist, filmmaker, and the director of the great documentary Chile Awakens, The End of the Neoliberal Miracle, as well as historian and journalist and executive director of Tricontinental Institute for Social Research, Vijay Prashad, who was recently in Chile and met Gabriel Boric. So, without any further ado, let us bring in our esteemed guests. Well, I see one esteemed guest. Do I see another esteemed guest? Wow. That is that's on my phone. Oh, okay. Two esteemed guests. Great. Welcome, Vijay and Pablo. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
It's great to be with you. Thanks a lot.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation.
Yes, we're so excited to have you both of your perspectives. I wanted to start with you, Pablo, to talk about the significance of this victory, of this election that just happened. What does it mean for Chile, for South America, for the world?
Yeah, well, I think that what it means is encapsulated a little bit the promise of what Boric said in his speech on election night, that Chile was the birthplace of neoliberalism and it'll be its tomb. The election of Boric in and of itself doesn't guarantee that, but I think it is a part of a process that is working towards that, right? So the election of Boric means that the Constitutional Convention can continue to discuss and make proposals that'll be coming to the Chilean population next year. And there are many people, and I count myself among them, who are hoping that the Constitutional Convention will include a lot of the things that brought people out into the streets from October 2019 and for many months afterwards, basically until the pandemic brought people into their homes. But Boric, we can talk about some of the things which perhaps are criticisms of him, some things which are definitely things that need to watch, that Chilean movements will need to push on. But nonetheless, his election is significant, not only in the fact that Chile does not have basically a fascist as president right now coming in. Has got a very right-wing president currently, but won't have Jose Antonio Kast taking the mantle in March. But Boric is also not. I don't think you can characterize them necessarily in the same way as some of the previous centrist and center-right governments that have governed Chile since the 1990s.
And Vijay, what do you have to add to that? And also, as someone who was there and you met Boric, so what are your impressions of this election?
I think this is an incredible election. I've often found it puzzling how people can't experience the enormity of something. Chile had a dictatorship, a ruthless, brutal military dictatorship for 17 years. The liberals that came in after the dictatorship essentially passively transferred power. They never went after the criminals who were in the Pinochet administration. It's a culture of impunity. The right wing essentially just entered into this period of democracy as if nothing had happened. It's very hard in that cultural terrain to move a real, genuine left agenda. I've spent a lot of time with Daniel Hadwe, who is a communist leader who ran in the primary, the first round, against Boric to be the candidate of the left. Daniel has some terrific ideas, is very much involved in building a municipal socialism in the area of Recoleta, where he's the mayor. A lot of, positive things, but you got to win an election in a country which has never, ever looked the dictatorship in the face and uprooted it. At least you can say Nestor Kirchner and Cristina Kirchner in Argentina went after some of the criminals. In Brazil, absolutely no justice for anybody, which is why it was easy for Bolsonaro to walk in there and to praise the dictatorship, 21-year dictatorship in Brazil. In Chile, it was 17 years. It's considerable. Not one of these people went to prison. In fact, Tony Blair, himself a criminal, the Spanish government of Salazar, and the Chilean government of Frey colluded to let Pinochet escape from Britain, come back to Chile, and die in his bed, almost celebrated. So it's in that context that a young man, age 35, student leader, militant, with very progressive ideas, has come to win an election in alliance with the communists. Yes, of course, Gabriel said this and that and the other, but to focus on that is to miss the larger cultural process at work in Chile. And I'm much more interested, my friends, in the cultural process than in this petty scorecard keeping that the US left in particular likes to indulge in. Are you the perfect person? It's not about that. We're in a great process of history. Let's focus on that.
And can you, before we delve more into Boric as a figure, I want to set the stage a little bit for who he was running against. Pablo, can you talk a little bit about Kast, his biography, his family's biography?
Yeah, so Jose Antonio Kast comes from, he was, before being the candidate for this new Republican Party movement that he started, he was an elected member for the previous iterations, the previous right-wing parties, UDI specifically, which continues to be, a party that factors into Chilean politics. Now, even though he initially denied it, it came out and he had to recognize that, his father was a member of the German Nazi youth, and then the Nazi party, and then his family immigrated to Chile.
So it's like a new form of Holocaust denial in a way. It's denying that your father was a Nazi. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you get a lot of that. Like, Piñera, the current president, also did his best to try to deny that he supported the Pinochet dictatorship, right? Where there was video evidence of him at rallies, right? So yeah. It's not necessarily new in Chilean politics either. But what I will say is also significant about that. I think, just like I agree with Vijay and with the perspective, and I've been saying it to folks, like, for all the criticisms and things that you may want to highlight about Boric, I don't think he is like Bachelet or Frey or those previous presidents either, in the sense that the things that he's talking about are definitely, he's putting forward a much more progressive agenda, at least nationally, than has been previously discussed. But also conversely, a Kast has been more right wing and has been to the right of a lot of the traditional right wing presidential candidates in Chile, including the ones from his former party. For a candidate to there's some absolutely insane things that were in his program, right? Like, I mean, it's tough to think about a more insane thing than be having a family lineage to the Nazi Party, but he was putting forward, among other things, that he had it on his platform that any flora and fauna that basically that would have to pay their cost of existing. So more or less, like, that was literally in his program. So signaling that the environment and natural habitat, it's up for sale, and whatever with their government would be looking to exploit and extract as much as possible. Anything from that to signaling that they would try to work with regional governments to identify and search out and persecute left-wing activists in the region, right? Which, again, going back to this, we saw that already. It was called Plan Condor, right? And it led to the assassination and like the murder, the jailing of tens of thousands of people. So, and those were part of his platforms, right? So it wasn't just a guy, trying to push forward more free market, neoliberal, capitalist measures. It was somebody that was also openly talking about things that hadn't really been discussed in Chile since the dictatorship.
So, like, those weren't leaked parts of his platform; those were the public parts of his platform.
Yeah, that
like
was out
level,
there,
right? It's kind of like Bolsonaro level.
He tried to deny some of those too. Like, I mean, it was almost farcical. Like, I mean, in certain press conferences, some of the more outrageous things would be raised to him, and he's like, "No, that's not in my platform." And the journalist would be like, "But it's in your platform." He's like, "Well, I don't think it's in my platform, but it's in my platform. I don't agree with it." So it was
that's
like, there were things like that. Yeah.
And what do you think? I guess, Vijay, if you could help us connect the dots, thread the needle between what we're seeing now, and I was going to say September 11th, 1973, but as you point out in a Twitter post, and of course you write amazing articles, and I recommend all of those, but I thought this was particularly poignant. You said that the coup, on September 11th, you said, if you think that today is the day of the coup against Salvador Allende's government in Chile in 1973, you're mistaken. The coup does not begin or even take place on 11 September 1973. The coup begins the day Allende wins the election. It was a coup that lasted 3 years. So can you connect what we're seeing today to not 73, not September 11th, but the first days that Allende was in power?
You have to understand that, firstly, this is a country of between 17 and 18 million people. It's not a very large population, but they're sitting on a lot of copper. They're sitting on a lot of resources. And this was, in a sense, and has been historically, one of the problems. Any social agenda moved by a government, whether it's even before Allende came to power, I'm not even talking about socialists, but even social democrats, if you move an agenda in Chile, you're going to have to struggle to raise the royalty against foreign multinational copper companies, communications companies, like ITT and so on. The moment you try and do that, they're going to come after you. And I must say, the Nixon administration, and I hope Henry Kissinger is watching this show, because that scum of the earth and Richard Nixon not only green-lighted a coup that starts before Allende, in fact, wins the election, because there's a murder of a military officer.
Right.
Carlos Pratt is murdered because he won't go along with the coup, the early coup. There's a lot of pressure on the Allende government those 3 years, and then they eventually get rid of it. I spent a very productive period with Giorgio Jackson, who's one of Boric's close advisors. There were a group of student leaders in 2012, Giorgio Jackson, Gabriel Boric, Camila, from the Communist Party, and so on. And what Giorgio said to me, I think, is instructive. He said that, look, the way the deal was conducted by the post-dictatorship is that when a government comes into power, for the first year, it has to actually operate on the budget of the previous government. So that means Boric is going to have to operate for year one, 2022, with Piñera's budget. But they're going to push, even then, they're going to start a conversation, hopefully with the new constitution, about raising the royalties that Chile gets from foreign companies that mine in the country. They're going to push for raising personal and corporate taxes. And they're going to push for improving public services, including reforming pensions. This is a considerable advance. It's based on these three policies that he said that we're going to bury neoliberalism. It's not based on some fantasy. It's based on these three policies. They are going to get squeezed really hard, really fast by foreign multinationals. The Chilean oligarchy is once again going to line up behind Washington, D.C., and not behind their own elected government. So people who are outside Chile need to keep a very close eye on what's happening here, because I'm telling you, I know there's a kind of naivete that has set in about Washington, D.C., that, now Washington is just a human rights democracy promoter and so on. What Washington did in Bolivia in 2019 is instructive. And let me tell you, for all the people who say this, that, and the other about Gabriel Boric, Boric condemned the coup in Bolivia, unlike a lot of people, including leftists based in the United States, who said, well, Evo Morales is overstayed his welcome.
It's complicated.
It's okay for Chancellor Angela Merkel to be Chancellor forever in Germany, but for an Indian man to be the head of his government, beloved head of his government, was unacceptable. It's a racist coup of November 2019. And I'm telling you, we've got to really keep a close eye, Katie. Pablo, you know this. You got to keep a close eye, because these scoundrels in Washington, D.C., and I'm sorry to use hard words like that, in the OAS,
understatement,
in the OAS, in the White House and so on, they're going to not like the actual agenda that Boric, his government, and I think elements of the left are going to push for. Pension reform is going to be a very important fight next year. We've got to watch for that.
And for people who are watching and who don't know a lot about the Allende and Pinochet government, and then we'll bring it back to present day, but I think they're related. And I think the death of Pinochet's widow, who was, sadly somewhat ancient, should have happened a lot earlier, but shows that this is not ancient history, right? This is something that's still, it's incredible. She died right before the election. What is the relationship between Allende and Pinochet and Kast and Boric?
Wow, that's a long line.
Easy question, right?
All right,
you guys can divide it up.
Let's divide this up, Vijay. Let's see. So Salvador Allende was like one of the historic leaders of the Chilean Socialist Party. Obviously a doctor, but also an activist. He ran a number of times, before actually being elected in 1970. And I will say, actually, the interference in Chilean elections actually stems well before this, right? There was, even before Allende, there were other popular governments that were formed in the 1930s and then 1940s. In the 1940s, the Videla government actually had communist ministers. And then after visits from Washington, all of those ministers were expelled and an anti-communist law was passed that made the Communist Party illegal, right? So when the time Allende came around, Allende was basically slated to win the election in 1964 before the CIA pumped millions of dollars into a media campaign that basically managed to have Alessandri Gemal. So the interference stems well before that, but still, the Chilean left, the social movements, the trade union movement, has had many years and decades of struggle before then. So by the time 1970 came around, not only did they win, but the agenda had been pushed so far to the left, like that even the Christian Democrat Party was pushing forward what they called communitarian socialism at that point. Right, so you had the Marxist socialism of the Socialist Party and the Communist Party versus the communitarian socialism, and that was the election, right? So that's when Vijay talks about culture, I couldn't agree more that is really one of the things that's often missed, right? What's happened over the last, I would say, 15 years in terms of the culture and how and how that influences what can happen politically in the country. But Allende wins, as Vijay already said. The interference continues, but obviously now is accelerated. So it becomes not only just around isolating the country diplomatically, which happened, attacking the country economically through various forms, denying it access to credit. There was capital strikes on the election day. One of the things which was reminiscent of the Allende periods is that the buses stopped. Like they stopped making the buses. They basically went out and actually hid buses in places so that people wouldn't have a way to get to the voting stations. This is something that happened similarly during the Allende period, where there was a transport strike so that people couldn't get goods. They were trying to create, similar to Venezuela, an economic pressure, right? So that people would turn on their government. And then later, once they saw that people did not turn on the government because the municipal elections just before the coup, again, actually signaled an advance for the Allende coalition, that's when the military option was put into play with Pinochet, who had been put in as head of the government after the assassination of Chile's top general, and then kind of like the successive sort of alienation of some of the remaining generals who had been incorporated into Allende's government, but basically were being pressured to resign and to make way for the coup. So the coup comes around 1973 to 1990, as 17 years, as Vijay already said. In 1980, they pass a constitution at the barrel of a gun, which solidifies and institutionalizes neoliberalism into the state structure of Chilean society. So everything that people have been protesting since the early days of the student movement, before the period where Boric and Georgia Jackson, as Vijay mentioned, Camila Vallejo, the student movements that some folks may remember if they were watching Chile around the earlier part of the last decade. In the mid-2000s, there was the Penguin Revolution, the high school students that also kind of began in some way this wave, annual wave of large mass mobilizations around any and every issue, because basically everything is an issue in Chilean society, right? Everything is privatized, everything, and all those things were baked into the Chilean society through the constitution, and the constitution was specifically crafted, deliberately crafted, so that you could not reverse those changes. So this is where we fast forward into 2019. Demonstrations that are catalyzed by a proposal to increase bus fares, which just was the last straw, and everything boiled over.
Right. Wow, that was great.
That was perfect. Pablo and I Pablo, we have both been to Plaza Dignidad on Friday. It's not just in Santiago, although I must say, like many countries of its size and scale, the capital city dominates the whole country. But if you go to Valparaiso, you go into the south, where Boric is from. Boric is from a Croatian family that migrated into the very south of Chile. You go into small towns, you see I was going to say detritus, Katie, but that's the wrong term. You see the kind of imagery of the frustration in society. There are old, venerable 19th century statues of all these grandees, on horseback or standing, painted red, or with slogans all over. And the government had been trying to clean them up, and then they'd be painted again. Graffiti everywhere, everywhere, including borrowing from the US, ACAB, everywhere. Because the fight was with the carabineros. I mean, they would come in and lash people with water cannons and so on. That fierce battle that broke out from 2019, cycles of protests, every week protests at the Plaza Dignidad, this produced a certain atmosphere. And, in a sense, I want to say that whether it would have been Boric or Daniel Hadwe leading the approved dignity ticket, they would have been carried by that wave. I think Boric quite understands that this is not about him. As he said, I'm only 35 years old. He said that in his victory speech, I'm the youngest president in Chile. I'm only 35 years old. And for God's sake, I won the most votes ever. And since voluntary voting began, this is the highest voter turnout, around 55, 56%. It's incredible. But it's not Boric. It's not Boric alone. It's this entire wave that opens up. As Pablo said, 2006, they were young high school kids. And remember this, Boric is 35. How old was he in 2006? These young penguins, because they call that for their uniforms, jumped over turnstiles, said we refuse. Then the cycle of protest 2012, it strikes the universities. Who are they? Well, it's Boric again. He was a young secondary school kid in 2006. He was a college student in 2012. He was a young adult in 2019. In fact, Katie, this whole cycle of unrest in Chile is the generation of Boric. It's the generation of Giorgio. It's the generation of Camila. It's the generation of Irasi Hasler. It's the generation of these young people. What's extraordinary is Chile actually is an old country. It has low birth rate. It has a lot of old people. And yet the youth have just walked in and said, we're here. And it's not the youth walking in just as youth. This is not merely a generational change. It's a political change. What they have said, and I think this is reflected in the constitutional debates, what they have said is, we just don't like our grandparents' country anymore. We are going to uphold the rights of the Mapuche. The Mapuche flag is all over the place in Santiago. There are not so many Mapuche in Santiago as there are Mapuche flags. It's all over the place. And what these kids are saying is, we just don't want that anymore. We want something different. Unlike protest movements like the Occupy movement or others, these were young kids who understood organization. One of the most unusual things about Chile is that 75% of secondary school children and college children are members of organization. It's a highly organized student body. You in your school, you don't just go to school, you join the union. Student unions at the private and public colleges are very strong, and they play a significant role in producing citizenship. That's got to be put on the table. In many countries, you just have this anarchic attitude towards the world. You don't have the experience of leafleting, of building power. And I must say, when you meet these people, I went to Boric's his campaign office. It was filled with young people. You look around and think, oh my God, can they really do it? But what you forget is they're in their 30s. They've had 15 years of training, the hard-boiled training of building power. They know how to do it. They don't need lessons. They don't need to read, manuals of how to do it. They've been doing it. They built their theory in action. And that's what I think is often forgotten, is that this is the victory, not of Gabriel alone, but of this cycle of protests that opens in 2006, deepens in 2012, and then goes accelerating in 2019.
I want. Keep going, Pablo, please.
No, I was going to just pick up on that. One of the things which speaking with people, the whole youth element was also important, like vital to ensuring that protest movement continued, right? Because when the government put military out into the street, the people that had lived during the dictatorship, they just went back into the shell that they had been conditioned on. That's what they went back to, right? So when I spoke with folks that were from that generation, the military went out there, they wanted to go back to their homes, but the youth who hadn't been part of that, they hadn't lived that, they didn't care about that, right? Like, I mean, they stayed out there, and as a result, that kind of gave everybody else more motivation and more courage to be like, all right, well, maybe we don't have to just shrink anymore, right? Like we can continue this, and we can fight, until the government caves in, which in some regards is basically what happened, and we're still seeing.
I wanted to share, Vijay, the photos that you tweeted out. Let's see. When are these from? When were you in? Let's see. I know you tweeted these out in October. So you were there in October? Is that?
I'm there almost every few months. So I don't know which picture you're talking about. But,
yeah. There we go.
Yes.
So there's Vijay with Boric, Giorgio Jackson, who you mentioned. And
you're all matching.
And we're
you are all matching.
And the thing is, I'm the old man in this.
Right.
I'm about 20 years older than them. And I just want to say, based on exactly what Pablo just said, Boric was 4 years old when Pinochet left office. He was 4 years old, Katie. I mean, for somebody like me, it's I'm 54 right now, so even for me, I was relatively young in 1990, but I was already political and I was already
Right.
involved and I was already had my first job as a journalist and so on. But he was 4 years old, and so he doesn't have, as Pablo said, that ingrained fear. And it's interesting that in Chilean society, that fear, the wall of fear, was broken by those the secondary school kids.
Mm.
2006 is really significant that secondary school kids just say, you know what, we don't have any fear anymore. It's reminiscent of the role that the Caracazo played in Venezuela in 1992. I visited
which is so people know, that's the pot banging.
No, this is actually the uprising in Caracas when the fuel prices.
Oh,
went
sorry,
up.
I
Yeah.
misheard what you said. The Caracazo,
It
yeah,
was
in
in
Caracas, yeah.
1992. I visited Caracas in 1995. I actually went there in a nutty way as an Indian journalist, hoping to interview Chavez 3 years before he won the election. But I remember in Caracas as well, there was a sense that, Andres Perez might have gone back to the IMF, but people, the poor, had said in 1992, we are not afraid anymore. We broke the wall of fear. And I think this wall of fear breaking is super significant. I feel like in a country like Brazil, which will go into election next year, the wall of fear situation was broken by the workers of southern Brazil led by Lula. That's why Lula carries so much respect from the population, because he was the guy who broke the wall of fear against the military dictatorship. And I think that's why lots of people look to the students in Chile and say, wow, we respect you. We don't think you're kids, You really allowed us to stand up and build our backbone. That's something.
Because they didn't have, in some ways, a kind of PTSD from before.
That's exactly what Pablo said. I mean, I exactly agree. People who understand the cries of torture, who had their children taken away from them. If you go to the cemetery in Recoleta, Katie, as you enter from one of the gates, there's a large wall where you see names of people who are still photographs, and it says, where are they? Donde está? Where is such and such? Where is such and such? You gotta, I mean, it's a society that has never come to terms with extreme violence against an entire generation. People who were, in their prime were taken out and killed. I visited the naval school in Buenos Aires, where the torture was done in Argentina. Entire generation was taken into that school, tortured, then taken out of the back door, put on a plane, and thrown alive into the Atlantic Ocean. That's what the junta did. And that's what the US government backed. And nobody really, except a few in Argentina, nobody has paid a price for this. It's outrageous.
Yeah. Pablo, what is your, if I can ask, your experience? Like, you were born in Chile. When did you leave? What was your family's experience there?
So my immediate family left in the mid 1980s during basically when the economy bottomed out. What's referred to as the economic miracle is, there wasn't much of a miracle to it, right? Like, at least insofar as the vast majority of Chileans experienced it. What happened in the 1980s is that the experiment after the economists from the University of Chicago started doing their thing and changing privatizing the things that the resources that Chile had, desocializing the economy. By 1980, the country was experiencing rampant inflation, mass unemployment. There was like, I think 25%, maybe even higher unemployment. And the sort of job insecurity on top of that actually more or less still exists until today. So that was the second wave of Chilean immigration. The first being folks from 73 to 78 who left the country fleeing political persecution, of which I had family that also left during that time. My family left during the other part of that, once the options for living were no longer there. And in some regard, what we're seeing right now is also a reaction to how that's currently played out, or how that's played out over the last 10, 15 years or so for that same generation, right? Who also, like, and this will sound familiar to probably lots of other people around the world, who are looking at their own futures and not seeing much hope, right? Because they don't see opportunities for having stable employment. The Chilean society is incredibly expensive, right? If anyone goes there, you'll see, like, I mean, anything you go out and buy a sandwich, and you're paying, like, you know, the same thing that, you know, you would pay in the US or I would pay in Canada, and the thing is, wages are nowhere near that, right? There's so many overlapping problems in Chilean society, which is this coalition in terms of apruebo dignidad means I support dignity, right? And the dignity was a major call of all these demonstrations that have led to the election of Boric as one component of it, because, you know, since the dictatorship onwards, the majority of Chile has been forced to swallow this indignity, right? They've been forced to swallow that in terms of how they live, but also in terms of how they see the ruling class, the impunity that they've continued to enjoy. You talk about Pinochet's wife, who died a few days before the elections, right? The Pinochet family usurped and stole millions of dollars, right? The Vijay talked about Chile's copper. People are familiar that Chile produces copper. Chile also produces lithium. Soquimich is the largest lithium producer in the world. Soquimich was a national company, a national resource company, potassium and other things, but also lithium. This was privatized under Pinochet and sold to his son-in-law, right? These are the type of things that happened during that time. And she died peacefully, right? Like, so all these things have accumulated and are part of, you know, why people protested for all these years, protested for days on end, weeks and months on end, and now have demanded a new constitution and have voted a 35-year-old student leader to be part of that process and carry it forward.
Yeah. And how does this relate to what's going on in other nations in South America and Latin America? Is the term pink wave even appropriate? I know that both of you, or Vijay especially, you referred with some frustration to the kind of intra-left, what is it called, firing squad. But what are the differences, and where can there be can Boric be shifted? I think that what happens is that we get understandably protective of people. So there's this fine line to walk between supporting someone who has a lot of pressure from the right and from the center, and also hoping and pushing them from the other side. What do you guys see the role of the international left right now to be?
Well, let me put it this way. It's not easy to come into power in a society where you don't command the culture. Look at Pedro Castillo. 4 coups have been reversed in the last 2 years, and that's impressive. I would say that Boric is the first to actually reverse the coup of 73, because the previous governments of the center-right essentially had a compromise with the coup regime. This is the first time. Let's see if Gabriel is able to move an agenda against the kind of coup processes that have been put in place. That's the 73 coup. Pedro Castillo, in a sense, reversed the self-coup of Alberto Fujimori of 1992. And then you had the reversal of the 2009 coup in Honduras with the election of Xiomara Castro, and then the 2019 coup reversed by Lucho Arce coming into office. But the two societies that are going to really have a hard time is Peru and Chile. Because, it's not easy to move a government of the left unless you have a kind of institutional support behind you. Pedro Castillo is largely isolated. He has been isolated from his own party, Peru Libre. It's no sense in saying, oh, he's done this wrong, he's done that wrong. We have to look at the long history of Chile. If, for instance, next year, Gustavo Petro wins in Colombia, there are two choices. One, Petro is going to be isolated from the left that has been in protest for the last 2.5 years. Or secondly, Colombia is going to return to civil war. That's a ruthless, brutal oligarchy, which preferred to start a terrible process of killing called the violence in 1948, then allow liberalism to establish itself. So I think, one has to, as a leftist, be patient and understand the processes that are at work. And again, not have a litmus test attitude to the left. Socialism is a journey. Socialism isn't an event. It's a journey. We have to push people. We have to struggle with people. We have to see also what's possible. So that's the attitude that I would highly recommend. The stance I would recommend is one of a kind of open principle rather than a kind of narrow-minded litmus test attitude.
What about you, Pablo? What do you think?
Yeah, I largely agree with that perspective. Like, I mean, I think it's always like, I mean, he just got elected on Sunday, right? Like, I mean, we will have to see. Actually, the battle right now is going to be the pressure that I think that that the pressure is probably already being cooked up in order to try to separate him to see how much he can be co-opted, right? Like, I mean, we've seen this happen before, right? And it's happened very recently. There's going to be a lot of pressure, right? Both from within Chile in terms of sectors of the Chilean ruling class, Chilean capital, and diplomatically Washington exerting, doing what it does, right? And it's going to be doing it directly to him, but also through his advisors, all these other things. I think we have to be optimistic and learn. I agree that so like all of this is a process, and we have to be hopeful, optimistic in that process, realistic about what is likely to come down. So I don't think he's going to proclaim socialism in March. I don't think he's necessarily going to change his stance on certain things that I disagree with him on, right? Like his stances on Venezuela or Cuba or whatever. Nonetheless, though, right, does that mean that that the baby should be thrown out with the bathwater? I don't think he's the entirety of it as a whole, as we've already kind of underlined, right? He's one part of what's happening and what's going to happen. So I actually don't hinge all of when you tell me what's going to happen in Chile, I don't hinge it all on him and what's going to happen from his office in La Moneda. I still think we haven't really talked much about what the Constitutional Convention is, but like I mean, there's a heavy political debate happening there that has that is where that the grave of neoliberalism, that's where that is actually being discussed and cooked up. I think more so than what is possible within the executive of the presidency of Chile at this time, right? Because he still has to function not only within that budget of Piñera, but within the structure that he inherited. This other body is looking at how to dismantle and create a new structure, right? And the movements are very plugged into that. So I think that there's a lot of things happening in terms of the region. There's things. There's the elections that Vijay mentioned. There's the things that are unfolding in Peru and in other places. A lot of these governments have to operate within the tremendous pressure that is exerted by their own ruling classes as well as by the U.S. imperialism, right? And it's easy to just look at those things and criticize where it's wrong. And sometimes, criticism is necessary. And sometimes also a process gets betrayed. I lived in Ecuador, right? And I saw that happen before my eyes, right? Where a process was supposed to continue. People elected something, and then the person that was elected completely veered in the other direction. That happens as well. I don't think that there's one easy answer, but I certainly don't think that right now is the time to lose hope.
Great. Well, and we'll have to have you back on to talk about the Constitution. But any final thoughts from either of you? I mean, this has been great, but any parting words of wisdom? You've already given a lot, but.
Well, all I'm going to say is that, when you are a 35-year-old who grew up in a student movement, who's been insular in Chile, we haven't talked about this, but there is an insularity in this little country that at the edge of South America. It's going to take time for him to get to know people. I'm looking forward to him going to CELAC meetings, meeting other world leaders, having conversations with them, learning about the situation in Cuba, Venezuela, and so on. There's a lot of growing up that's going to happen among these young Chilean leftists. And let's see how much they're willing to learn, Katie. Great.
Thanks. Well, hopefully they watch this stream and learn from you guys. Not from me, from you guys.
Well, like, I mean, I've learned from them, frankly, right? Like, I mean, I went to the, like, I was, able to see that those movements, right after, like, I mean, all of that kind of came right in the months after there had been a lot of accumulated defeats in Latin America, I would say. So I don't know, for me, it was actually an important thing, an important reminder, right? That, history just doesn't have one trajectory. There's ups and downs. And, you have to recognize that, first of all. And also, I think, just have some hope, that people will resist, that people will continue to try to fight for a better society for themselves and a better world for everybody. And, again, aside from Boric, I actually do have a lot of confidence that, those organizations in Chile, whether it's students or the trade unions or the Mapuche nations, that those organizations are going to continue pushing the envelope, right? Like, I mean, they weren't out into the streets, risking their lives, risking their eyes, risking, everything, just to feel defeated if the person that's elected doesn't do what, that they want at that time. Like, I think people are fairly determined, right? So, and fairly determined to push for something radical, not just piecemeal. The government tried that during those demonstrations. The Pinochet government tried to assuage people by offering, little increases in minimum wage. This thing here will cancel the fare increase, and people just kept going out because they were tired of it. So I think that sentiment is not going to go away. So I'm hopeful. It's not going to happen immediately, but I'm hopeful in the process that's unfolding and coming.
And I'm just going to read some nice comments about you guys, but yay, Vijay has taken over the mantle from Michael Parenti, in my opinion. Great guest, Katie. Well, he's still on the mantle. They're both at the mantle. You guys should check out Edgar Khan, maybe interview him. Otherwise, check out the St. Pete Time Bank. They have a nice podcast as well. Okay. And where can people find you? Well, I'm just getting these other nice comments. Where can people find you online, or just any plugs that you wanted to?
Vijay's everywhere online.
Well,
yeah.
No, I mean, I would just like people to follow the Globetrotter news service, syndicated service. Get your news from somewhere that you can actually sink your teeth into it. You got to get off the addiction to the kind of McDonald's of news, CNN and all that garbage. No calories in the McDonald's of news, Katie.
Yeah.
People need to come and listen to places where they get nutrition.
Right. Bad calories, toxins, full of toxins. Yeah. Not even real meat. Well, thank you guys so much. And Pablo, I'll make sure to link to your documentary, which is great. And I'll link to all your guys' sites. Thank you so much, Pablo Vivanco and Vijay Prashad. See you soon.
Thanks.
Bye. All right. That was great. That was so great. Guys, that was great. Loved it. Could have them on again. Hope to have them on again. I hope they got, I was joking when I said they should listen to us. I mean, it was half joke, half not. I was being self-deprecating, but also I do think they had a lot of great insights, obviously. And yeah, so, but the biggest joke, of course, / reality, absolute certainty, is that Boric is watching this live stream. Hi, Boric. Thanks for stopping by. Congratulations. Which something funny, by the way, is that Boric, the person who ran against Boric in the primary is Palestinian, and some like conservative Chilean Jews were very upset that he was that he was running, and then I think they were upset because Boric said some critical stuff about Israel, very justifiably critical stuff about Israel, and as Max Blumenthal pointed out, they seem to not care that there was that Boric was running against, that the person Boric was running against was the son of a Nazi. So priorities, am I right? Anyway, make sure that you please like and share the stream. That's free, no cost. Just press like, just share on social media. Please subscribe. You press subscribe and then you hit the bell. Also, you can become members of the Katie Halper Show YouTube family. You can, of course, become Patreon supporters at patreon.com/the Katie Halper Show. But the new news is that for $3.99 a month, you can become members of the channel and get access to exclusive emojis and badges, which show how long you've been a member. And we'll be making gifts also. So all great reasons to join. And now I'm going to bring on to the stage, I'm going to bring on two guys. First, we have Jack, co-host of the Struggle Session podcast, Jack AM Jack. Morning,
Hey
Jack.
there. How
Hey.
you doing?
Good, you?
Good.
Jack
Good to see you.
Allison.
Yeah.
Good
How
to
you
see
doing?
you. Good.
Yeah.
I like your hair. It looks very stylish.
Oh, thank you. I've done nothing to it at all. So I guess that's the
Wow.
perfect
Woke up,
method. But thank you for
woke
saying
up like this.
Yeah.
And-
I can't say anything other than the truth.
And we're also bringing on Matt Bruenig, who is an economist, the founder and editor of the People's Policy Project, and great wonk. You're the second wonk we've had on this week. We had David Dayan, and we're
Wonk
having
week.
you on. It's Wonk Week at the Katie Halper Show. Yeah. So welcome, Matt. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you've been busy writing up a storm.
Oh, yeah. The last few months for sure. And I guess in the last few days,
Yeah.
maybe less so because it's all about it falling apart and no
Right.
more room for me to explain the details and what we need to do better. But,
Well, there is a lot for you. Luckily, at least to me, there's always more that you can explain when it comes to this stuff. And I thought we could start off by watching a video, though, that Biden gave a speech today. He made some interesting announcements today about testing, and this is an interesting pivot away from his press secretary.
What we've done over the course of time, we've quadrupled the size of our testing plan. We've cut the cost significantly over the past few months, and this effort to push to ensure insurers you're able to get your tests refunded means 150 million Americans will be able to get free tests.
Complicated though. Why not just make them free and give them out and have them available everywhere?
Should we just send one to every American?
Maybe.
Okay, just quickly, I like that she thinks that's some kind of zing.
Right.
Yeah.
This is something that they're doing in the UK, isn't that right?
Yeah.
That anyone can just go to some website.co.uk and order one to their house?
Well,
that's what she goes on. That's what the questioner actually goes on to say.
Then what happens
sure.
if every American has one test? How much does that cost? And then what happens after that?
All I know is that other countries seem to be making them available in greater quantities for less money.
Well, I think we share the same objective, which is to make them less expensive and more accessible, right? Every country's going to do that differently. And I was just noting that, again, our tests go through the FDA approval process. That's not the
So, okay, that's an interesting moment. And then let's compare that to this moment from today.
We also need to do better with at-home testing. So I'm announcing today, the federal government will purchase 1/2 billion, that's not million, billion with a B, additional at-home rapid tests with delivery starting in January. We'll be getting these tests to Americans for free. And we'll have websites where you can get them delivered to your home.
Wow.
We've arranged for it to be easier for you to find a free COVID testing site near you on Google. Just enter COVID test near me in the Google search bar. And you can find a number of different locations nearby.
Google's famous search bar.
We're going to continue to use its
Don't click on feeling lucky.
as we did earlier this month, to make sure we're producing as many tests and as quickly as possible.
So
The bottom line is it's a lot better than it was. But we're
Couple
taking
days
even more
ago.
steps to make it easier to get tested and get tested for free.
it's a lot better than it was when my press secretary mocked the idea of giving people tests for free.
Well, you can, at least she, took up the idea and brought it up with the president, after it was brought up in the briefing. So, we should all thank our lucky stars.
That's true. We should be happy. Yeah. I guess that it could have been worse. He could have doubled down, right?
I mean, we can, and none of us would be getting tests in that case.
Well, what are your thoughts on the response to to Omicron, the response to Build Back Better? Bruenig, tell us, lay it on us.
Well, I don't have too much thought on the COVID situation. I know in my own personal life, it took me a very long time to find a booster. That it was a lot easier to get the first 2 shots, and I tried to get a booster, and it was quite difficult. So something has degraded in the meantime in terms of the ability to roll that out, at least where I'm at. And I know tests. I went to the store the other day, not to get a test, but they had a sign on the store that was like, "We're all out of COVID tests." I was like, "Oh, that's great." I took a little picture of it. I'm like, "This is wonderful." So yeah, I mean, that's about all I know on that. I mean, on Build Back Better, it seems like, I mean, from the reporting, it's a little bit hard to understand. Did Joe Manchin ever want a deal or not? Is he throwing this all away because his feelings were hurt because of a press release they put out that mentioned him by name? The press release that they put out actually seemed to kind of be positive, the one that mentioned him by name. So that's a little bit strange. I don't know. The way he's behaving is just really odd, and it would be nice to be clear on what the issue was. Was it substantive? Is it too much money? Are you worried about inflation? Are you worried about, or was it a breach in?
He was about to say it.
Well, he was about to say decorum, I believe.
I think he was about to get to the truth.
Oh my God! See, this always happens to you.
We can't let Matt Bruenig speak it.
It couldn't be that it takes a lot of bandwidth to stream video. It is probably that the NSA and CIA,
the CIA, and also Joe Manchin.
Yeah, and Joe Manchin himself.
And his evil daughter.
That's really what's happened here is the Democrats took you down because they don't want anyone mentioning Joe Manchin by name. It could cause another rift in
remove him until he's on,
in the negotiations.
No one likes to have a freezing thing. Yeah.
I mean, as far as I look at it, I'm like, I've been thinking a lot lately, Katie, about remember when Joe Biden won and everybody had impromptu parades in the street and everybody went out and got drunk. I've been thinking about that day a lot lately, and I'm like, so that was all in celebration of a highway bill. Of mostly existing spending. Everyone was out there popping champagne. Chrissy Teigen came out in her car and waved from the window, all in celebration of half of 500 billion in new spending, mostly to corporations. I look at the last couple weeks of the Biden administration and I'm like, well, that's about the end of that. You know what I mean? Matt was talking about what did Joe Manchin want, and I think from the beginning that this has been a scam. I think when the CPC finally voted for the infrastructure, they're getting scammed, and now the scam, has been revealed.
Yeah. So, what do you think, Matt?
Possibly. I mean, definitely. What happened when it, at first, of course, maybe you just talked about this, they were going to hold up the infrastructure bill in order to do the BBB, and they end up falling on that. And, what happened there, from what I could tell, is the House, except for the Squad, who did hold on there, everyone else in the Progressive Caucus or everyone else in the House who were kind of playing that game, they only seemed willing to do that for as long as Biden was telling them to.
Right.
Because he was for that for a while. And so they were willing to be kind of soldiers for the president. And as soon as the president was like, no, I'm not doing that anymore, it all collapsed. And so, I don't know. It was a game of Biden versus Manchin, and Biden gave up at that point. And I even at the time, the sort of assurances, we've got assurances, right, that all seemed bullshit to me. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. But the idea that they stopped their leverage play because they were confident that Manchin was gonna. That seemed false. That was a way of covering for the fact that Biden really wanted this bipartisan thing done. He thought it would help them, and they're not willing to cross the president for the most part. So.
Right. Yeah. And then we have this which we can watch. This is Biden's statement on. So pathetic to watch it, but hold on one second. We got a statement this is Biden from today. Screen, one second. Here's Biden being asked about Manchin.
Are you sharing it yet? Because I'm not seeing it.
Oh, sorry. There's a new. I'm sorry about that. Sorry. Yes, thank you.
I don't think we're seeing it.
Yeah, you're not. I forgot.
There we go. Okay.
Here. That would have been really awkward.
My bad.
Mr. President, did Senator Manchin break his commitment to you? When you announced the framework, the White House says that all 50 senators were believed to get behind it, all 50 Democratic senators. So did Senator Manchin break his commitment to you?
Senator Manchin and I are going to get something done. Thank you.
Mr. President,
That's
did
an
Senator
interesting
Manchin
response.
break his
So,
commitment?
I don't know if that's a threat, if that's a date. Unclear what.
There's no threat. You know, there's nothing they can do to him. You know, he calls his own shots. So, you know, I don't
Insulin
know.
shots.
Yeah, and you know, it's weird. It's weird because the White House says that he offered a $1.8 trillion thing the day before, and then they decided not to go with it, and he was upset about the Biden was insisting on the child tax credit, and but then all of a sudden he's like, I'm for nothing at all. You know, the information that is leaking out and being reported doesn't really tell a coherent story of what anyone's interests are, or how this was meant to play out. I think Manchin, he's just kind of a high drama, kind of erratic dude, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not here to make friends. You know, he's that reality show character.
On the real world or
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a piece at the People's Policy Project, what to do about very bad parents, which of course, hold on, let me just share this. I like this because it makes it look like you're talking about
Joe himself.
Joe Manchin. And I'm sure he is a bad parent because he's just a bad human being. I can't imagine he'd be very good at it. And he raised a child who's like a sociopathic insulin price gouger. You write, according to Tara Golshin and Arthur Delaney, one of Joe Manchin's objections to providing cash benefits to the children of low earnings parents is that those parents would waste the money on vices. Publicly, his biggest gripes are about the cost of the bill, but privately, Manchin has told his colleagues that he essentially doesn't trust low-income people to spend government money wisely. In recent months, Manchin has told several of his fellow Democrats that he thought parents would waste monthly child tax credit payments on drugs instead of providing for their children, according to two sources familiar with their senator's comment. So what is your, can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I just, you know, it is interesting. If you talk to normal people, this actually comes up a lot. At least you know, back in Texas, you know, if you talk to people, they're always worried about, you know, poor people that are spending their checks on drugs and stuff like that. But nobody really talks about that in the public discourse all that much. It's like the same thing with minimum wage and stuff like that. You get these arguments that don't really track what regular reactionaries are mad about. You know, it's like, oh, well, what about incentives to work? Or what about marriage incentives? And what about this and that? And like, you actually talk to real reactionaries and they're like, fuck these people, these drug addicts and stuff like that. Yeah. So I thought, you know, let's just write a piece that just kind of just takes that as a real point. Maybe someone really is concerned about it. Let's try to address it. And I cited to the study from Canada where they have a child benefit in Canada, like our child tax credit. And they were able to exploit differences in the level of benefit across the provinces in Canada and kind of figure out sort of causatively, like what happens when you get these child benefits? What do people do? How does their spending change? And they found that actually spending on alcohol and tobacco, which were the only vices that were present in the consumption survey they used, spending on those things actually declined. And that's consistent with another theory of vice use, which is that for a lot of people, it's a way of coping with issues and problems they have. Obviously, that's not true of everyone, but for a significant number of people, it is. And if you improve their plight, maybe they have less need for these kinds of coping mechanisms. So that, it's just not true there. And then also fundamentally, what I've always found really weird about these arguments is, okay, so you're worried about, you've got these parents, because there are parents out there who are like really bad and like really addicted. There are some, not a lot, but some. And what I've always thought weird about this argument is to say, okay, so what exactly are you going to do to fix that problem, right? You got these parents, you got these kids, and it's like, well, what I'm going to do, I'm like, are you going to help the parent get better? No. Are you going to separate the kid? Maybe it's that bad that the kid needs to be separated? No. what I'm going to do is I'm going to make them poorer. I'm going to keep everything like it is, the custodial situation, the drug problem, whatever it is, and we're just going to make them poorer.
Yeah.
And then we're good to go. Then we've solved the problem.
There's a punitiveness in so much.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Policy. Yeah.
It's just like, it's a way of indicating disapproval of the activity, not to solve the issue of whether it's drug addiction or a kid who's being neglected or abused and trying to help them. It's just, I don't like this situation, so starve it. You know, everyone here needs to feel some pain for what they're doing.
Including the kids.
Yeah, the kids. That's what's so weird about this in particular, at least if it's sometimes able-bodied adults without dependents. That's a group of people that they always like to pick on whenever the Republicans are in power. They'll cut their food stamps and Medicaid and stuff like that. And you're like, oh, I see, because those people, they don't seem sympathetic to you. They're not disabled. They're not kids. They're not whatever. But here we're talking about a benefit only for kids, for families with kids. So that cannot be separated out. And you know, they're going to pay the price, even in those families. So.
Right. Not that any of us here are pro making people suffer even when they don't have kids, but it's just the optics of it are just so, I mean, what is the game plan? What's the end game? The end game is literally making the children who you claim to be protecting, wanting to protect, suffer.
Suffer more.
Suffer more. Right. Suffer more. And it is interesting that, you know, not that I'm for child-parent separation, obviously, but it's interesting that that's not even part of, if they propose that, there would be a kind of moral coherence. Like, I would disagree with that position, but there would be some kind of consistency. Like, this is just doesn't even begin to address anything.
Right. Well, and like I say in the piece, you know, people who have these problems, they could squander money wherever they get it. It doesn't really matter, right? So people can blow their paycheck on gambling or drugs or whatever just as much as they can blow a benefit check on it. And many do. And, you know, I mean, the point I'm making in the piece is not, hey, we need to go out and start, you know, cracking the whip on separation. But if that's what you're concerned about, that is kind of the only mechanism. Now, you need to decide how far you want to go with it. You know, how neglectful does it need to be? There probably is a line where everyone says, yeah, if this kid is just starving or you're beating him really bad, like maybe we need to step in. But that's the only way you could address that. Pulling money out of the family unit doesn't address it. And in fact, you know, it's going to make it worse in every way. When people get poor, they don't get less neglectful. They don't get less abusive. They get, you know, more of both of those things. So
yeah, it's just kind of openly sadistic and irrational.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, there was a story today where they were quoting someone who had come from West Virginia, you know, to lobby him on this, you know, a constituent, and she said that he told him that she said that he told her that they'd had a constituent in earlier and that she had told Joe that her daughter, her crackhead daughter, was using the money to, you know, buy crack, I guess. So.
Yeah, that sounds like someone, you know, that sounds like a well-sourced, you know, story. So at the very least, that's extremely well-sourced. There's no bias, you know, inherent there with somebody coming in complaining about their daughter.
I do like to imagine that. I mean, like, imagine it's like, I'm going to go, most people can never even imagine being like, I'm going to go talk to a senator. Like, why? Why would you do that? Right. You're already kind of weird and strange to want to do that. So you go in there and your whole thing is like, you want to tell them, hey, my crackhead daughter's using these. I very doubt that occurs.
That is really having a beef with your daughter.
Yeah.
That's really going out there.
That's a terrible parent right there. Now, that's a
really.
Parent. Yeah. Yeah. And what about you have another piece about Mitt Romney's the Romney child allowance is good.
Yeah, well, because Romney, after, you know, with BBB failing, Romney, you know, threw it out again yesterday saying, hey, I have a child allowance bill that I would like you guys to pass. Join with me. And so I'd written a lot about that in February when he had first introduced it. And, you know, it's his, you know, I've talked to some of his staffers about this, and the bill is in part based on a paper that I wrote about this subject. So I'm a little bit like, oh, cool. All right. Someone's picking up, you know, what I'm laying down on this. And I actually thought his proposal was better than the thing that Biden they ended up passing just for this year, which is now expired. They're close, but I think his was better. Obviously, similar to what I think about it. And so I just kind of put out another piece saying, hey, like, this is a good thing, and if you could get it passed, you should. Now, practically, it's probably not. It's just no one passes bills with like 49 Dems and Mitt Romney, and right. And there's other things in it that are actually good. Like one of the ways he pays for it is he gets rid of the SALT deduction entirely, because right now we still have like a small SALT deduction. I'm sure you guys covered some of that. That was a big hang up with the bill. They wanted to make it bigger and whatever. And one of the ways he pays for it is just gets rid of it entirely. And that I'm totally ready and happy to do that, but there are a lot of Dems who aren't. So there are those kinds of things that, exactly.
Really yeah.
So it's probably got no legs, but it is funny and interesting to kind of, this is supposed to be the thing Biden is most concerned about. And you do have a proposal that's probably better than his. It's a permanent proposal, not a 1-year extension, which was what was in the BBB. It was just a 1-year extension.
Right.
This is a permanent benefit. And all you got to do is bite the bullet on SALT, which is a shitty deduction anyways, but they're not going to do it. So
SALT is just such bad politics. I can't even fucking believe it. It seems like such an obvious trap laid by the Republicans and Trump to like make them fight for a tax cut just for their high earners. And I can't believe how hook, line, and sinker, like, SALT has become like one of the most important things that Democrats are fighting for in this year where they hold all the levers of power.
Yeah, no, it's genius, because the Republicans, all they do when they get in power is cut taxes on the rich, cut taxes on the rich. And they found a way to somehow flip that on the Dems and be like, you want to talk about the party of
on your rich,
the party of cutting taxes on the rich? It's actually the Democrats, and they
right.
like when they finally got the SALT thing in BBB this time around. Mitt Romney had tweeted out, he was like, "I see the Democrats are trying to cut my taxes. No, you will not buy my support in this bill." And it was like, it's a funny tweet, and it's true.
You don't want Mitt Romney to be allowed to say that, honestly.
No, how can you let Mitt dunk on you?
On the left. Mitt the populist.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's really ridiculous. And do you think that we had David Dayen on the other day, and one of the things we talked about was how there's so much stuff that Biden could pass at the stroke of the pen, with the stroke of the pen. How much is Manchin just kind of a scapegoat, or Manchin and Sinema rotating villains?
I know that's David's big thing, and he's been on top of that even before Biden became president. So he knows perhaps more about all the different items than I do. And I've read his work on it, and the stuff they published, and there's a decent, healthy list of things they could do. But it's also true that you can't do like a child tax credit. The child tax credit thing. You can't create a child care system or pre-K system or paid family. All that kind of stuff that was in the bill. You can't do that. Through executive order.
Right.
But there's other stuff you could do. So.
I think, Katie, honestly, that Manchin and Sinema are rotating villains for that. They actually have even less support in the Senate. I think if Manchin suddenly came around, you might start hearing more objections from like a Chris Coons or like Warner. There are people I think that don't want to get to not take the heat because of them. But
right, yes, they're shields.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People who are like Biden's close friends and allies.
By the way, where's Warren? Where's Elizabeth Warren? Has anyone seen her or heard from her?
Wow.
She had some things she put out recently. I don't remember. They weren't remarkable. I think she's pushing some of the student debt stuff. Let's see what she's
That's
tweeting
something
about.
he could do, obviously, right?
The debt. Yeah. I mean, but he is instead restarting the debt. So there
was a story today saying that they're going to think about postponing that.
Yeah,
because of the COVID and whatnot. Yeah. So maybe there'll be a few more.
To have Donald Trump on you on that.
Oh boy!
Like not make that permanent or just pause it.
I mean, as far, they have the vaccines now, and obviously that's a very good thing, and people should get vaccinated. But as far as, COVID under Biden and Trump, I'm like, I think they more efficiently opened everything up under Biden. It seems like when Trump was tweeting open her up, like maybe it was a good thing that all the Dem governors were like, fuck Trump, we'll never open up. And then when Biden said open up, everyone was like, okay, sir, like we listen to science and it's time to open up. I feel like we got more money and we were more shut down under Trump somehow in COVID.
Yeah, we definitely were. The CARES Act was massive. It was an incredible bit of legislation. Biden did stimuluses, under Trump, and we've had just the one, and more people have died from COVID this year. I'm like, let's get another American Rescue Plan. If you can't do BBB, then just at least do another like COVID stimulus.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Well, they're worried about inflation now, so
I think they've really sold that idea that all of this inflation is being caused by the fact that people got $1,400 like back in February. When there's also this whole supply chain issue that's driving up prices of like everything. But yes, they have. A cable news has fully convinced everyone that if you send people in excess of $1,000, then gas suddenly costs $7.
Also,
people love gas. When they get that money, they just go wild with gas. They fill up their swimming pools with it.
So I didn't know this. I guess Warren has COVID.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
That is the most grim thing. You're like, what has Warren been up to? Oh, she has COVID.
Is that true? Can we get let me confirm that. But she has not had COVID for long enough to justify her inactivity on this.
Her timeline is just expand the court, student debt, pass Build Back Better. That's pretty much it. Protect democracy.
Warren and Booker, Cory Booker and Elizabeth Warren both test positive for COVID, which, by the way, I don't want to get into this, but that's not proof that the vaccine doesn't work. Okay.
All right. You do have a YouTube chat room going here, I remember. So you have to sort of caveat these things.
There's some people saying that that's some kind of proof that it's that the jab is bad or something.
Wow.
The issue is that's good that she was triple vaxxed, and her response to this will most likely, statistically speaking, be more mild to it than the response of someone not vaccinated. And there you have it.
That's what they keep saying about Omicron, is that it's just, they keep saying it's more contagious but less symptoms. Lethal. So, I'm still going to go see The Matrix. It's basically my takeaway.
I got my booster, by the way. I got my booster. Kick my ass.
Oh, there you go. Really? The booster was that for me. Nothing happened.
Didn't do anything to me.
Really? Yeah. I guess not everyone has my immune system.
Oh, wow.
My raging immune system. Yeah. I just kicked my ass for like 24 hours. But yeah, it is kind of funny when people say that stuff. But keep getting vaccinated, guys. I know that's gonna cost me some Patreons and some subscribers, but that's my
wow.
That's
you're like Trump right now. You have to really navigate on a knife's edge.
Oh yeah, seriously, yeah. Well, Matt, I know you're very busy. You've been very generous. Any final thoughts you want to share? Any hot takes? Nerdy things?
No, not really. I'm just looking to see, like, Biden said he's going to get something done. So I'm going to see what comes out of that.
What's he going to get done?
I don't think so. I don't know. Joe just he does not seem to want to get anything done. So he does not. He's in the labor context. We'd say he's not bargaining in good faith. He'll propose something and then he'll back off of it, and then someone else will say, "Okay, we'll do what you want to do," and then he doesn't want to do it, and then and it's just filibustering in the more colloquial sense. So
right, he's a bad faith bargainer.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like to me. Maybe I'll be wrong.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll have you back on to do your do a post-mortem.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Good to talk to you.
That was great.
That was great. It's great. Could have talked to him, and yeah, you know it's not a good Christmas for Joe Biden. It does feel like the Biden administration is really limping into Christmas, and you know, at this point, it's just like it's sad. It really is. I'm like, it just is a sad end of the year for Joe Biden. I thought things were going to go bad for Joe Biden, but you know, for him to, I thought that they were going to pass a totally shitty version of Build Back Better. I thought that they were going to like meet with Manchin and pass like a 1.2 trillion super shitty version and then try to sell that to everybody. But this like big public blow up, not that I'm like, I would obviously don't think that's good. I don't think the 1.75 trillion one is even that good. That's what's funny about even like it has a lot of good stuff in it. And certainly there's almost nothing in anything else that Biden's done. I mean, the CARES Act got everybody checks, but the fact that they're only doing this child tax credit year by year is so fucking pathetic. They can't even get it done. They should just pass it for at least the 4 years that he's president. It's like pathetic to have the checks fucking get cut off at the start of January. Yeah, I am surprised at the sort of level of patheticness of this administration. I thought they'd at least be able to kind of like use the presidency to try to sell shittier versions, but they're just like failing and like publicly they're just like constantly stepping on rakes, and it's just like embarrassing. Honestly.
I know.
It really is.
It's humiliating.
Especially now with Omicron happening, I'm like, how do you more people have fucking died from COVID under Biden, and like I was like kind of saying there, I'm like, I don't feel like the response is really any better. I really don't. I you know, I feel like they kind of set up bungalows at colleges to give people shots, but like the vaccine just wasn't out in 2020. Like other than that, I'm like, you know, we're opened up, you know, spread is fucking horrible. Like unemployment is over. Like it seems like worse in every way to me. Like more people are dying, the spread is continuing, and we're not getting as much like assistance. And it does still feel like everything sucks. Like there's still not fucking aluminum foil at the store and stuff.
Yeah, it's just a shit show. But you know what, Jack? I wanted to play a message.
Oh, okay. I
want you to know something. You know, you think it's bad now, right? You think it's bad now?
Okay. I'm about to see.
I always find this guy to be such a source of wisdom. Hold on. And by this guy, I mean, of course, Joe Scarborough.
Oh, wow.
Let's have a listen.
Morning Joe himself.
Morning Joe himself.
I was quite taken. Again, not because of Joe Manchin's feelings, just because of the realities of Washington, D.C. I was taken by those attacks and attacks by other Democrats, which we're going to read in a second, which seems to invite Joe Manchin to become a Republican. Democrats think it can't get worse. Oh, it can always get worse. Jim Jeffords left the Republican Party in 2002 and gave Democrats control of the Senate because of his problems with George W. Bush. So help me understand what led to that. And then after that, was there an understanding of the White House that they needed to cool down and figure out a way to restart talks with Manchin? Because with Manchin, it's never over. It's never over. He can say it's over, but there's always another deal to be had. They can chop up this plan and pass the plan piece by piece. I mean, there's always another deal with this guy. Yeah.
Wow. So everyone just needs to be a lot nicer to Joe Manchin, and you know, we can all come together. Really, it's about those toxic Biden bros. You know, that's really what it's all about, is the toxicity of Biden's staff and his supporters. You know, they've been sending snake emojis to Joe Manchin, if you can believe it.
Who will speak for the Joe Manchins of the world?
His feelings were hurt. Jen Psaki sent out a press release, and his feelings were hurt. You know, and so that's why the child tax credit is going to end. And again, all this stuff, it's like you have to also keep caveat. You have to also make a caveat all the time of like the child tax credit is also not good enough. Like what they're trying to sell is they're like, this has lifted. They said at first it was going to lift half of children out of poverty. Now they try to say it's 40%. But then I saw in a news article they were like 30% or something. But this child tax credit is not enough. And the fact that like that is, that's what's on the bubble is this absolutely not enough thing. Like that's kind of what I thought about the Biden administration is that they would get the not enough stuff done, like, and try to, and then people would like be annoying about like, well, the child tax credit has like reduced child poverty. They're not even able to get the not enough done. They're not even able to get it passed into law. It's really been pretty astonishing.
Yeah, it is. And this was the guy who was supposed to let us get things done, right? Bernie was the idealist.
And Mr. Competency, you know Mr. what I mean? We're bringing back competency. How do you? How do you?
In the Senate. This is disgusting. This whole Joe Biden, he's so soft-spoken, like you should talk like an asshole if you're an asshole.
Biden, I think Biden is just, we know he's barely there.
No, I was talking about Manchin.
Oh, Manchin. Yeah. Manchin.
Did I say Biden? I mean, it's hard to keep
track.
You
might have. Or maybe I got confused. Hey, there's a lot of Joes. It's our two President Joes.
Yeah.
We've got two President Joes.
The tale of two Joes. The presidency of two Joes. The Joe presidency.
Yes. Yeah. The man and what they are able to accomplish there though is getting the Jonas brothers there to get people to take boosters. That video was annoying enough, but then I didn't even know this, but apparently that's based on some viral video of like a homeless person who's mispronouncing Joe Biden's name. Because I guess it went viral on TikTok, some homeless guy saying like, Joe Byron or whatever. So they brought the Jonas brothers all dressed in their like expensive suits to the White House to like lip sync to a homeless guy. It is so
okay. I got to see this. We may get.
Have you not seen this video? Okay, no. Sorry. You should look up the Jonas brothers. At the White House. And maybe I can try to find the link and put it in the private for you. Because you might find like a wrap up video or something like that.
I think I found it. Oh my God. I found it. It's on Now This News.
You'll have to share this to us. Yeah.
Oh, did you put it up there?
Oh, I didn't. I thought you were I was gonna put it in the link, but if you found it.
You put in the private. Okay. I think I found it.
But
it's on Now This, right?
That's the one I found too.
Okay, hold on. Oh my gosh. These are the guys who Obama jokingly threatened to drone. Remember that?
Oh yes, I do remember that. Well, they should. That's why they're here. Maybe Biden called them and he's like, that's still on the table. That's actually still on the table. We were talking today.
I thought more just that they were part of their entertainment. They're on retainer for the Biden.
No. They're deeply afraid of hearing jets coming at them. The electric buzz of the drones. Here we go.
Bing bong. Are you vaccinated? Yes, sir. Hey, yo. Who's the president, man? Who's the president? Byron. Who's the president? Byron. What do you want to tell Joe Biden right now? What's up, baby? Take me out to dinner.
Do we get it?
We got it.
What the hell?
So
Wait
that, of course, the video itself, everybody was posting.
I need to find the actual video.
But yes, this is based on a guy who went viral on TikTok, and people ended up like, I guess, raising money for him to like buy a house. But I don't know, like it just feels so weird that you're bringing these rich kids to the White House to like lip sync an unhoused person. Like all this, like, people are living in the streets under your presidency, and like you're having the fucking Jonas brothers come and lip sync to one of them.
Person. Yeah. I found the original video.
It's
I don't
like
know what
really grim.
Was, but
it's just some streamer or something like that out in the streets interviewing people, and this guy
tell Joe Biden right now. What's up, baby? Take me out to dinner. Hey, yo.
So there's I guess other clips of him, and he went viral, and I think people like got him an apartment, and it ends up being like a positive story, because of the TikTokers. But the White House is not inviting this guy to the White House. They're like inviting the Jonas Brothers to lip sync to a video of a homeless person to get people to get the booster, I guess. And, so I don't know. I'm just trying to point out that the Joe Biden White House is getting things accomplished. They did have the Jonas Brothers to the White House.
The Jonas Brothers, yeah.
And we've obviously seen the boosters, spike. It's not, we've seen the boosters, go up by triple-digit percentage, as a result of that. So,
that
to say they're doing nothing.
Jimmy Fallon song about mass Christmas.
Yes. Yeah. I actually count every time a late night show does a musical song about the quarantine being over. That to me is like, when the gopher sees it or when the groundhog sees its shadow.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know we're in for another like half a year of COVID. Yeah. If they do a little song about how COVID's over. James Corden did one, Fallon did one, and like clockwork, there was Delta and Omicron.
Oh yeah, coincidence? I think not.
I think not.
You doing anything good for the holidays?
Oh, I'm going out of town. Kate's my spouse's brother lives down near Palm Springs, so we're gonna go visit near Palm Springs for the holidays. I didn't, there, of course, there's all the issues with the supply chain. So we didn't get a tree or many gifts or anything like that because of the issues, of course, with the supply chain. You've heard.
Yeah. Supply chain, China.
The
inflation.
Supply chain, we know the supply chain is just in a dire state right now. And so we can't be having a Christmas. I was thinking about the supply chain, and them being like, oh, there's nothing on the shelves for Christmas. The supply chain, I'm like, things being stuck on a boat out by Long Beach, that's just a small step on its centuries of life sitting in a dump somewhere. All this little plastic shit, like, it's like the time it's not getting to the stores right now is so minuscule compared to the time it's just going to sit on a big pile of trash, in a field. So we should thank our lucky stars. Really, this is just a short journey, a short stop off on the journey to the dump.
Yeah, that's true. When you put it that way, it's not.
How about
so
you?
bad
Are you
after
doing
all.
anything for the holidays?
I'm gonna go be with my family.
Good.
Upstate.
Good.
Yeah.
That sounds good. I mean, hang
out with Bodie.
That sounds like a good time. Do you always do you have any plans? Like, what are you going to do with them? Just hang out at the house?
Yeah. Have a dinner.
Nice.
I'm going to make some healthy desserts, maybe.
Okay. So what are you thinking?
Yeah. Well, heavy cream and strawberries.
Okay. See, that's great. With the heavy cream and strawberries. You know what I've had recently that is a very good, very easy dessert is if you just get the frozen blueberries.
Yeah, I got some
like
at
the market
or
whatever, the bag of frozen blueberries, put it like a little chunk of them just in a bowl and then put the heavy cream on it. The heavy cream like freezes onto it and it becomes like coated with it. It's like really pretty good actually.
Yeah.
So I'd suggest that's a good healthy dessert.
Yeah. All right. I'll do that. Yeah. Friend of show, Shuja Hader, told me about something with blueberries and food processor and heavy cream. And it makes kind of like an ice cream.
Okay. Wow. I could see that. Yeah. That sounds interesting. That sounds good.
How are you going to prevent it from being a super spreader event?
What, going to your parents or me going to
both of us? How are we going to work together?
I wear my mask, but also, it kind of seems like everyone's going to get Omicron. Is what it seems like. And I don't know. I'm not a scientist and I'm not a doctor, so definitely take all this. And I know a lot of the people out there in the audience probably aren't vaccinated, so this really doesn't apply to you if you're not vaccinated. But they keep saying, like, if you're vaccinated, that it's like not that bad of symptoms, right? And like the whole goal of this from the beginning was to not overwhelm the hospitals and so that all the old people wouldn't die and everything like that. Theoretically, every time I went to a movie like before COVID, I was risking like catching a cold, right? You know what I mean? Like every time you're around people, you're risking catching a cold. So if this is only as bad as a cold or whatever, then I don't know. Like the goal was not that nobody ever gets sick again. Like I feel like at a certain point, I have to go see The Matrix. And, you know, if that means I'm wearing a mask and sitting, you know, in a crowded theater, then, you know, I have to see The Matrix. We need to get back to our lives. You know,
Right.
I don't want to catch COVID. I'll still be wearing the mask and stuff like that. But, you know, I'm not going to do another shut-in year. You know,
Right.
like
Yeah.
I've had my fill. Like, I really wanted to be a shut-in before all this, and now I really have had my fill. This was a be careful what you wish for situation for me, you know. And
You're like, I can't believe I was sitting there hoping for a deadly pandemic that shut down the entire world.
I was like, gee, I sure wish I'd never have to leave the house again, and I could just stay in and play my video games and watch TV. Wouldn't that be the life for me? I found out that I was wrong. I wish I never wished for that, you know. So, you know, I don't know. I don't want to get sick, and I don't recommend.
I don't want to get my parents sick.
Yes. Yeah.
That's my big fear. By the way, someone asked, what do Jews do? You're so mysterious. Well, this Jewess celebrates Christmas, and I used to, when I was a kid, do Hanukkah, but my family, my uncle is married.
Oh, you don't do Hanukkah now?
No, I used to.
Oh, okay.
My uncle's wife is not Jewish and not religious either, but so the whole family used to celebrate Christmas. We'd throw in some Hanukkah stuff, like one night, and we've always done. We're a big Passover family.
Yeah, Christmas really can be for everybody. You know what I mean? There's so little Jesus in it at this point, and all the Santa Claus bullshit. The Santa Claus, the Grinch, that's for everybody. You know, that's really for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All the classic Christmas characters. Rudolph, the Grinch.
Yeah.
The Heat Miser.
I don't know whether I should go to a show. I may not go to a show I was supposed to go to.
Like a comedy show or something?
I don't want to name it because I don't.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I won't. I mean, a performance, like a review.
Gotcha.
Cabaret, because I don't know. I'm just sharing my thought process with you and people watching. But
you know, I'm just
conflicted.
You know, here's the thing is I feel like it was always, even before COVID, weren't we always like kind of half of the time always looking for a reason not to go to something? And now it really is like there's just another element, and it really does weight it, you know, a different way. You know what I mean? Like it really does throw the weighting quite off. Like if it's not something that you really feel like you must do, you know?
Right. Someone's like, if you're not having any symptoms, how can you pass it? Well, if you're non-symptomatic, if you get infected and you're non-symptomatic, I'm not going to get into a fight with the people in the comments about this. The issue is whether or not I could bring it to someone else.
Yeah, you could like before you go, you know.
Yeah.
Out of town. I mean, it is bad in New York, right? Isn't it like just like gotten back to a very bad state again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I feel like we've all also like been forced to become doctors and give each other medical advice all the time. I really am starting to be more like, I'm not a fucking doctor and I don't know shit. Right. And I'm just like figuring out, you know, the way I'm going to live my life. I'm like, I'm getting looser on everything, but then I'm like, I guess but it also is possible I'll like just catch COVID then, which would really suck.
It would suck. I mean, if you catch COVID, it's not good, but what really sucks is that someone immune compromised catches it.
Yes. Getting it to an older person, getting it. Well, I have asthma, so I'm like in the immunocompromised, but not as, not in the, you know, not like for real,
right.
Immunocompromised.
I have asthma too.
Immunocompromised.
Bradley just said the numbers in New York now are where they were at the beginning of the pandemic. So if you wouldn't go to a thing then, but now it's more due to just not caring anymore, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's right. I think that's right.
It's not caring, but also have a different cost benefit.
No, but it's like you're also not caring with 3 vaccines. You know what I mean? Like you didn't have 3 vaccines in you at the start of the thing. I'm like, I'm like not caring, and I have 3 fucking shots in my arm. You know,
how much immunity does someone have who hasn't gotten the booster yet? Do we know?
I don't know. And even like they're like, 30%? You know, I even read like the Johnson & Johnson is not effective at all anymore. Wow. If you know, again, I don't even try to, you can read COVID news all day, every day, and I can't do it, you know? I just can't do it.
So Brad is saying with the booster, it's up to around 70%, but without the booster, it's 30%.
Yeah. Welcome to Christmas number. I'm just astonished that we're in Christmas too, with it being exactly like this. We've had 2 completely grinched out Christmases.
Why do you think that it was going to be?
I didn't think COVID was going to go away, but I am surprised, I guess, at how quickly Omicron came after Delta. I guess I'm surprised at how quickly I felt like we were going to keep getting new variants, but the fact that a new variant dropped like just in time for the holidays was a little surprising to me. And like the most contagious one yet.
Right. But not as lethal, right?
That's what they're saying. But that's all I can say is that's what they're saying. They say all sorts of shit. They said not to wear masks at the start, it's like they say all kinds of shit,
Yeah.
Not to say that makes it less credible. It just is like they're figuring shit out as it goes along. You know what I mean? Like people are not infallible, and this is a new thing for everybody. It's a new thing to be in a pandemic in the year 2021.
And Brad, final question: how long does it take? How much immunity do you have? What's the timeline with the booster?
One other question: how contagious are cabaret shows? Specifically,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I wonder if it's going to be. I
guess I haven't really gone to like shows like
I
that.
have gone to some shows, but
like I haven't really gone to comedy. I went to like an outdoor, music and comedy thing, but that was outdoor.
I saw the magnetic fields inside. I saw another play inside.
Okay.
I saw a play inside. I wore masks though.
I actually went to, and this is to my eternal shame, Kate's mom for her birthday asked that we all go to Hamilton with her, and I did go see Hamilton here in LA. I went and saw COVID Hamilton here in LA. So I saw a show too. It was very masked. It was very masked, and I was masked.
Do you have to be vaccinated to go?
When we bought the tickets, I thought you did, but then when we got there, I saw the signs that were like, you have to be vaccinated or have a recent test there, and I was like, oh, this is an recent test place. This is an recent tester situation.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Another thing I learned that people keep liking to bring up is that you're just as contagious if you have the vaccine versus don't have the vaccine.
Which is another thing that makes me, feel the guilt COVID guilt that we've all been learned.
No, but the thing is, you're less likely to get infected with the vaccine. So you're less likely to transfer it. It's once you have the infection,
then you're just as infectious.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing I don't want, the real reason I don't want it, why I don't want COVID, even though it would definitely suck to have COVID, the real reason I don't want it is I don't want to fucking have to quarantine for like 10 days. Like it would suck to have to like stay indoors for 10 days. But I guess that's the that's the double-edged sword of going to see The Matrix, which I'm doing tomorrow at noon.
Right.
So.
Oh, you really are?
I am. I've seen a couple movies, I stay masked. I'm not like eating the entire time or anything like that, but they're filling up movie theaters these days. You're shoulder to shoulder when you're at the movies these days.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I'm not a big fan of, all right, I'm not going to get into it. The whole stop trusting. I trust doctors who have no skin in the fucking game. There are people who aren't part of big pharma. In fact, there are doctors who are quite critical of big pharma. And yeah.
It's all good.
There's this like really annoying fucking thing that people do where they like shame you for other things. It's like I don't think people should be, I think people should be you should try to reach people, not shame them. But then you have people who are like, well, what about people who smoke or like are overweight? They don't ever exercise, they don't eat right, to like justify they're like shifting the blame. It's like, don't blame people who don't get vaccinated. It's the people who don't do enough push-ups.
Blame like overweight people.
Yeah.
Whatever, Geez, I don't know. I think that, I think it's pretty clear that the pandemic has been a really rough time for everybody, and I think that people have been indoors for quite a long time, and I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like, I definitely have no interest in, like, how about this? If anyone out there is like upset about hearing about the vaccine, I have no fucking interest in talking with anyone about the vaccine. Like, I actually truly don't give a shit. If somebody was like, I haven't had the vaccine, I'd probably be like, you go ahead and do whatever the fuck you want. Yeah. I don't really give a shit. So if you're upset about people being kind of annoying about, like, being prescriptive about getting the vaccine, I don't think that's useful either. So, whatever. I'll get my fucking vaccine. I'll get them whenever they tell me to get them. That's just the way it's going to be. Who gives a shit?
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, guys, and then some people are saying the only thing the vax does is keep you out of the hospital, which, again, I don't know why people would not
sounds pretty good to me.
Like,
that sounds good to me.
Yeah, people have death wishes.
Sounds good to me. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't feel like every vaccine, says that means you definitely won't get the disease. Like, I've had the flu shot before, and then I've still gotten the flu. Like, vaccines are messy. It's not like a fucking computer program or something like that where you can tell, like, exactly how it's going to work. Like, you're getting injected with, like, a weird little bit of the disease, so you try to build up an immunity to it. It doesn't always fucking work. I think, like, health and doctor shit is, like, it's still kind of like they're winging it a little bit. Like, they have a lot of base of information, but they're not like God or something. Yeah. You gotta be okay with a little bit of trial and error.
So Brad predicts. Ready for this?
Sure.
Ready for Brad's predictions?
Yeah.
My personal prediction is that everyone traveling from the Northeast for the holidays are going to bring Omicron with them, and we'll see the result play out in the coming weeks. Hope I'm wrong. I had the idea earlier today we could get anti-vaxxers to get the vaccine if we tell them it protects them from 5G. All
right. We do need 5G protection in our blood. I think what they should do is they should just be like, we admit it. Bill Gates did put a chip in the first one, and now we're not doing it anymore. So we're not going to do it anymore.
Charlie,
you caught us.
Died. I think Charlie Dive may have nailed it. Wait, first, what do Cuban doctors say, Charlie?
Yeah, what are the Cuban doctors saying?
Before I say that.
Yeah, you're getting
ahead of myself.
Getting roped into a
logic. I mean, I know they do the vaccine. So but I want to know what he's saying. Come on, Charlie. Let us know. Let us know. I know they vaccinate a lot of people. Even if, here's the other thing, even if, like, I believe the theory that, like, that a drug like Big Pharma is creating the disease, as long as they're, that would suck, and I would like to put a stop to that. But, like, if they're doing that and creating a cure, I would still
the
get
disease
the
is still out there. You know, I'm like, then you're still. I mean, that is a funny. I don't think that's true, but listen, you can acknowledge that the pharmaceutical companies are very, very happy to profit off of this, of course, and that's a very ugly and fucked up thing. And but again, like we talked about on the show before, like the problem with insulin costing like $1,000 is not that insulin doesn't work. It's that they're like price gouging for this stuff that actually does work. Profiting unfairly off of this stuff that works.
Yeah. This is a good point. Emperor now says, as soon as they nixed giving the vax recipe to all nations, I stopped caring what they use as excuses for people to get it. I mean, that's the thing. It's an irrational, nationalistic response to an international virus.
And also just like a bizarre and sad, it's like a pretty revealing thing just about what American copyright law looks like and what American like intellectual property law looks like, when we're applying it to something like this. It really is I don't know. We've done very, very badly with COVID. America maybe can't maybe America was not built to deal with something like COVID.
By the way, It is true. Listen to Cubans.
They have the highest vaccine rate in the world. Wow. Look at that. See, I listen to Cuban doctors too. I don't know. I'll do whatever they tell me to do. If there's another one out, I'll take it, and I'll feel slightly safer for 3 months.
Another thing is that someone has had a recipe, and it's I guess the FDA wouldn't approve of it. I don't know. It's in bad in both directions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not out here saying that, I love the pharmaceutical companies or the way that trademark law is done in the United States.
No.
It seems as though the vaccine helps you from, getting very, very sick with COVID, which also seems like something that sucks quite badly.
Right.
And I'm not interested in doing.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to do another episode on, apartheid, vaccine apartheid.
Yes, I guess so. I guess we'll have to do another one.
Yeah. All righty. Well, guys, have a great holiday. Well, I'll see you. What day? Sunday is what day of the week? The 26th?
I think so. Yeah.
All right. So I'll see you. Yeah. Have a great Christmas if I don't see you before then.
Yeah.
To everyone, be safe. We really gotta, Jack, we gotta do a viewing party. We'll figure out when to do it.
Yeah, we were trying to figure that out. We gotta do that sometime. Yeah, maybe next week when I get back.
Yeah. Awesome. Bye everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Become Patreon supporters, subscribe, like, rate, review, subscribe by pressing subscribe, and then the bell. Make sure you like the stream, make sure you share it, spread the word, and I will see you guys on Sunday. Bye, everyone.
Later.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Tyler. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.